Welcome to the webinar, everyone. We're happy to have you here. We're going through LuxOS here. We're looking to help everyone understand a little bit better how the firmware works, some of the features that we're excited about, and hopefully open up some minds and eyes to what is capable with Luxor Firmware. So just a quick agenda. It's pretty straightforward. We're going through a few things here. We're going to look at just a quick overview of the dashboard itself to show you kind of what's going on here. You've seen some screenshots, I'm sure, but we'll give you a quick look at it. And then I want to talk through a concept that I kind of ripped off from my manufacturing days in oil and gas called overall equipment effectiveness. It's a metric that we used, or we aimed to use wherever we could, to better quantify the performance of any given machine. So I'm trying to kind of use that as an analog to address why we think Luxor firmware is a very potent possibility for the industry. Compatibility is a big thing we're going to talk through. There's different machines in the market, and so we'll touch on what we are compatible with, and then some of the roadmap topics as well. We'll go through preset profiles, temperature and fan configuration, hash rate splitting, and then we'll open it up for the questions that we keep track of along the way. And again, if you have questions, please jot them down. We want to get to your questions, but we want to be respectful of everyone's time and make sure that we're running this as organized as we can. So, well, I jumped ahead. So just a quick overview. So you've got the dashboard. Here she is. We've got pretty much every metric you would expect to see on a dashboard for ASIC firmware. You've got 5-minute hash rate, power usage, efficiency, and uptime right across the top. I had a power surge yesterday, so I had to go shut down. The transformer kept tripping. I didn't need my neighbors fussing at me because they know I'm mining. So I went and shut it down yesterday. I'm booted up this morning. I'll say this: any command or data field that you see available on the GUI, it's available to you via REST API, and we have full documentation on our website that explains all the commands that are available, the responses, and all that stuff. So if you're a developer, or you're a miner, or you're doing some R&D for your operator, your mining operator, we encourage you to go check out that API documentation, because we think there are a lot of really neat features and applications that you can get into when it comes to customizing your performance. So yeah, any command you see here, it's available. Any of the configuration stuff on the other tabs is also available via API command. You've got, like I said, the header information up here, your fan performance. So this is the current RPMs, the current set point. 70% fan, you see that there. It's in automatic mode. We have a manual mode where you can stop the fans from operating, or you can ramp them up, and that kind of enables your immersion applications. And we'll get through all that. We also have some basic pool statistics here with respect to rejections, accepted shares, moving averages on hash rate, and all the good stuff there. One of the things we're really proud of how it came out is the hashboard statistics here. You've got your current profile and settings up top, and then your 5-minute and your nominal hash rates here. So your target, your theoretical hash rate really there, and along with the 5-minute average for each board. Health report for all of the chips. We show that on every board. We'll show you how that works down the road in a later section. And then all of the temperatures. So like, not all of the S19 machines have 4 temperature sensors on every board. So just to keep things consistent, we display all 4, but if it only has 2 sensors on the board, we just duplicate the same reading on both numbers. And then down here, we just have a summary of our pool configuration. So I'm going to jump back to the slides to kind of talk about one of the things that, like I mentioned, OEE, right? Overall equipment effectiveness. It's a term that comes from manufacturing, Lean Six Sigma, that kind of stuff. And the idea here is to quantify the performance of any given machine. And to do that, and I say performance, and that's probably a little bit redundant. So to quantify the effectiveness of any given machine. The whole point here is to not have a single metric but to kind of encompass all of the metrics that are relevant to a miner or anyone who's operating a piece of equipment in manufacturing or that kind of context. So the three components as the metric is currently configured are availability, performance, and quality. So availability is your uptime. Obviously, miners keep track of uptime in their pool dashboards in most cases. But the idea is you would convert all of these to a percentage. So at the end of this, you get one big percentage that adjusts for all of them. So you have hours of uptime over hours with available power. The available power would be up to you how you want to qualify that. You could say all hours, assume it's 24 hours a day. But if it would make sense to only track your machine's operation when it has power, because now if you factor in time that it doesn't have power, you're worrying about other machines or other factors. So this is to look at the explicit effectiveness of that machine. Performance, so actual hash rate over specified hash rate. So specified hash rate for the most normal scenario, you would probably just use the nameplate hash rate. However, if you're in an overclocking situation or an underclocking situation, you would use a hash rate that you specify as your target. So like, let's say you're overclocking and you expect it to be at, let's say 110 terahash. You would look at that as, that would be your denominator. And then you would divide your actual performance hash rate for that for a period of time to kind of get the average performance for that period of time. And then quality, that comes down to your pool metrics. So you would want to look at how your pool metrics show the shares submission. If you have a lot of rejected shares, it doesn't matter if you're hashing really quickly, right? So you want to factor in all of these components, because when most people talk about firmware, their first question is about how efficient or really how fast can you overclock or whatever, something along those lines. And what we want to emphasize is if you've got really great fast hash rate, but your uptime is 80%, like you're ultimately giving that hash rate right back. So again, we want to emphasize the holistic approach to optimizing your machine. And that may involve not going for the fastest hash rate, because that ends up pushing your heat up, right? So that's the idea behind OEE, and it's a metric that I kind of coined just for this webinar, and I would like to try and develop it a little bit further to potentially accommodate power, because obviously that's a pretty important component when it comes to Bitcoin mining, your efficiency. So you would have power adjusted OEE, but I won't go into that any further. But the idea here is a holistic approach to assessing the performance of your machine, and how does LuxOS help to improve that? Okay, so compatibility. This is something that is probably our biggest point to improve upon. We're very well aware of it. As we went through beta testing, it became readily apparent that we need to expand our compatibility to support other S19 models, because as of now, we only support S19, J Pro, XP, but only with a Xilinx control board. It became very clear very quickly that Xilinx control boards do not ship very commonly on either of these machines any longer. We set out about a year and a half ago to start this whole project, and we started from scratch. We brought in some embedded engineers to start development, and when we kicked it off, Xilinx was the predominant control board shipping on every machine. So we kind of started off under that assumption. We got to beta testing and discovered that it was almost all AM Logic and BeagleBone that was shipping on these two models. So we are aware of it. We are working quickly to expand the compatibility to BeagleBone and AM Logic, but at this moment we are not currently compatible. If anyone's curious, we do have an S9 image. We actually started on S9 because it was affordable to burn those up if we did something wrong. However, we're not making that publicly available at the moment, because while there's a pretty big addressable market there of interested users, we don't want to put something out that we don't have time to support. And so we're trying to grow very intentionally. So we're sticking to a public release of S19. I will say that we have a beta test version of S19 we're calling it vanilla just because it's the standard S19 and S19 Pro, the 110 model. We have that image is in beta testing with some of our partners at the moment, and we're looking to have that released within the next week or so. So that's it for compatibility. Yeah, and so for anyone who's unaware, the way you identify your control board, sorry, I kind of skipped over this. The way you identify your control board is basically look at the back. If it has an SD card slot on the faceplate here, that's a Xilinx. If it has a micro USB on the faceplate, that's AM Logic. If it has nothing on the faceplate and you take your cover off and you look underneath, there's an SD card slot there. That is a BeagleBone controller. So we don't support either of these two yet, but this is how you would identify it if you're curious as to whether or not your machine is supported. And then I didn't really get into it, but the hashboard models. Hashboard models are something we know what we do support, being these numbers right here. We also don't know every model that Bitmain manufactured. So if you look at the side of your machine and you have a number that's not in this list, and all of these specifications are on our website at luxor.tech/firmware, you can get all the support documentation there. So if you have a model number that's not on this list, by all means, please reach out. We would actually love to work with you to try and identify what's different about that machine and how we can move to support it. Oh goodness, I'm seeing some flickers. I think we might have some weather coming through. If I drop, I apologize. We may have to do some improv from Mr. Alessandro here. So let's see. Here we go. Oh, okay, that's the last one. So I'll come back here. So yeah, so after compatibility, we're going to jump into the operation. So the first one we get to is hopefully going to address some of the questions here. So I showed you I'm going to move this over to the screen so I can keep track of it as well. I showed you the dashboard, right? So pretty dashboard, that's all fine and good. But one of the things that's most exciting for a lot of people, because like I said, when everyone thinks firmware, they think overclocking, underclocking. So this is where you do it. If you're using the GUI, you would come here to the preset profiles page, and then you have a nice set of options when it comes to overclocking or underclocking. So you've got these options for underclocking. Now, I live in Texas, and it's been appropriately warm for the year. And so I've been underclocking. However, you'll notice that my temps are actually pretty low here. And so I actually have the opportunity today, because we just got a random cold front. I'll say cool front. It's like in the 60s. Apologies to anyone north of the border who's struggling with the cold. So I can actually go back to the default profile, and I might even get a little aggressive here and go to let's go and overclock it here. So one of the questions that we just had a minute ago was about seamless profile changes. So that is one of the things we are very excited to brag about, right? You don't have to reboot the machine. There's no board reboot. There's no any impact to your operation when it comes to switching between profiles. So if you want to overclock, you send it the command. Like, now, remember, I'm kind of saying this in the context of understanding large scale miners are going to have management software in most scenarios. Or at the very least, they're probably dispatching these kind of commands with some kind of script to hit all of the miners. But if you're a home miner and like you've got a cold snap and like we did in Houston here, you have the option to come in here and overclock, right? You've got a little more bandwidth or a little more breathing room with the temperature. So you get that, you can get those hashes out. So what you'll see here is the chip health. What's one of the things that we kind of addressed? That was one of the other questions, actually. Let me see what the specific question was about chip health, because there's actually a good chance to potentially address it. You have unhealthy chips, the hashboard is stopped. Will we be able to? So the short answer to that question is yes. You will be able to keep mining even if you have unhealthy chips. As soon as you have unhealthy chips, this power estimate is like totally out the window. It's likely going to be maybe not very, it's just going to be inaccurate because the power consumption is determined by how many chips are hashing. So if you have any chips unhealthy, the rest of the chips will continue hashing. So that kind of speaks to that question. But you'll notice after we hit our target frequency and voltage here, that's the set point, the health checker takes over at its last point. So now the health checker is running. It's going to take about 30 minutes to go through the rest of the chips on the board. And at that point, you'll know that, okay, I'm overclocking and my machine is performing in a healthy way. I'm not too hot. I'm not too cold. I'm not undervolted. I don't have too much frequency for the voltage. Basically, you know that your machine is running and your chips are in a healthy status. So the health checker is one of the things we're happy about, we're excited about, because it gives a little bit of insight in current operation, but it also gives the possibility to start predicting some failures, because what we're learning is that the chips don't fail like instantly, like they don't just turn off and stop working. It's actually kind of like a slow and steady decline that you can actually start to pick up on with our health checker. So you have this option available to you. So anytime you make an overclocking change, you should keep in mind that you want to look at your health check. So this is the number of chips that we know are healthy. Obviously yellow, well, maybe it's not obvious. Yellow indicates that the status of the chips are unknown. So we'll come back to the dashboard here, and I mentioned it earlier. This shows the number of known healthy chips here, right? So as you can imagine with the API, there's a call that you can make, and it returns an array of all of the health statuses of every chip on the board that you specify. So when you get to the end of it, you can look through that array and see, does it have an N? Because N means it's not healthy. And as soon as you see that, then you might need to instigate some kind of maintenance operation to go and see, is something wrong, or do you need to adjust something? So I'm actually going to leave this on this specific setting because I want to show you at the end what the full health looks like, or verify that this will get to the full health. But that kind of also speaks to the question earlier about the benefits of being able to transition between profiles on the fly. And then some other topics on profiles. So this is the current iteration of our GUI. One of the things we are working on is the custom profile builder. This is a really neat feature that's particularly relevant for like home miners who are doing this on their own, or if a large scale miner needs to develop prototype profiles for specific machines. We'll have a GUI that will allow you to go in and specify voltage and frequency, and we'll have some performance characteristics that will tell you, hey, for the same voltage, you can come down in frequency to get a better, or for the same voltage, you can go up in frequency to get a better efficiency, or whatever the case may be. So we'll have that in a profile configurator, I guess you could say. So yeah, that's one of the things we're working on. And then another functionality that we don't specify here, and we don't give it in the GUI, is the ability to set profile by hashboard. So right now we have a single drop down for the efficiency, or sorry, not for the efficiency, Freudian slip here, for the profile for the entire machine. However, you'll also notice that profile name is displayed by hashboard. So you can actually, with the API, you could specify profile by hashboard. So that kind of gives you a sneak peek into how we plan to auto tune. You'll have I mean, obviously it's there. We have a status for the tuner, but we're using an abundance of caution with that specific algorithm, because when you release an algorithm that potentially impacts people's equipment, we need to be extremely thorough about how we test it. And so we wanted to release the stable platform to verify that everything operationally works as we expect it, and then we can take our time to develop the auto tuning algorithm in a way that everyone is 100% signed off that it'll provide the efficiency improvements that we expect without putting anyone's equipment at risk. So yeah, you'll be able to auto tune. There will be a set point that'll adjust the profiles by board. And then if you are so inclined to do your own tuning or you're a tinkerer, you're welcome to use the API to basically build your own algorithm to tune your machine. So if you want to set up a Python script and use the REST API, it's open to you. The idea here is that we have a really potent platform rather than just an all-inclusive solution that you don't have any control over. So up next, I believe we were going to talk about temperatures. Yep, temperatures. So temperatures and fans. Let's start with temperatures. So the target temperature very plainly is the temperature that your fan is trying to maintain. So you'll see here that all of our temperatures are pretty well below the target temperature, 57, 57, 55, 55, 55. The fan will get to 100% when your hottest temperature gets to that target temperature. So the idea here is you can adjust this if you have a little more tolerance for risk. But one of the things that we discovered relatively early on in testing is temperature is a massive factor when it comes to determining the efficiency of the machines. And that's actually not as trivial as it may seem. A lot of people think, oh, cold is great for mining because it keeps the machines cold, but there's actually a floor. I see some names in here who I'm sure know that, but for those of you who don't know, you don't want your miner to be operating with chips too much colder than 40 degrees C because the silicone is just less efficient at those numbers. So we've actually tweaked our algorithm, our fan algorithm in recent weeks to account for that while we still had some cold weather, because we noticed we were getting some less than ideal performance when we got below 40 degrees C. So you've got that target temperature that the fans are trying to maintain. And then I'm going to skip over hot temperature for now, and I'm going to go straight to dangerous temperature. And this also kind of speaks to one of the questions we got earlier. The question earlier was about chip behavior. If a chip goes down, does the entire machine stop? This is more in the context of boards. So the dangerous temperature is the temperature at which the firmware will start the shutdown sequence on a given hash board. So this is my hot board. I'm guessing it's in the middle. I'm not 100% certain, but it would make sense that it's the one that gets the hottest. So as soon as this board has any of its temperature sensors get to that dangerous temperature of 70 degrees C, it's going to restart that board. And the intent of the restart is to stop hashing and get the temperature under control. If it doesn't get the temperature under control in that restart cycle, it's going to do that up to 2 more times. So a total of 3 reboots of the hash board in an attempt to get the temperature under control. If it doesn't succeed at getting the temperature under control, it's going to leave that hash board off while the other 2 hash boards continue running. We've tested this in the context of machines with and without a PIC on the hash board. So I know that's a conversation that's very popular right now in a lot of the industry. So just keep that in mind. We do allow you to circumvent the limitation that not having a PIC has put people in when it comes to some of the new Bitmain models. So in the event that you do have a board go down, you have the option to come in and restart that individual hash board to try and get that one back. Maybe it's cooled down, it's nighttime, you can bring it back online. Or maybe you want to take advantage of the profile switching. You can restart this hash board and now assign it a profile with a lower frequency to where it's going to consume less power and generate less heat. Now you may be operating at 90% hash rate, but that's better than the 60% hash rate that you were operating at before. So you've got some flexibility in how you respond to temperature in that regard. And then we'll jump into hot temperature. Now, this one's a little bit more of a tease than the other ones, specifically about how this comes into play. So I alluded to it earlier, the auto tuner is something that we don't have publicly released because we want to make sure that we're keeping everyone's machines safe. But the hot temperature is a variable that affects the auto tuner. So the idea here, which is really popular in some of our West Texas applications, or any hot application for that matter. But the idea here is the way the auto tuner works is it maintains voltage and starts to step up frequency. As you step up frequency, you consume more power and generate more heat. It'll look for a ceiling there that can be limited in different ways. If you start to have unhealthy chips because you don't have enough voltage for that frequency, we'll go back a step basically. And then if you get to a frequency that maybe your chips are still healthy, but you're not respecting your temperatures here, we can take action. So the way it'll work is that you'll get to your target temperature. Now your fans are running at 100%, like I said. Once you hit that target temperature, we stop adding clock speed to your auto tuner. So between 60 and 65, there's no more additions to your clock speed to try and improve the efficiency for that set point. Once you hit the hot temperature of 65 here, and I'm saying the numbers that are listed, but you can configure these if you have a little more tolerance for risk, or if you're in immersion and you know that you can actually handle a little more heat because the fluid will take that heat a little more quickly than air cooling. So once you hit that hot temperature, it's actually going to start underclocking to ensure that you don't hit the dangerous temperature. The idea of the auto tuner is to keep you as high hash rate and high efficiency without shutting machines down. So that's the idea behind the 3 temperature set points that we have available right now. And again, all of these are available to configure via API if you'd like. Okay, so fans. So the way the fans work, it's pretty straightforward. You've got power, or I'll just set to manual mode. You could say 4, and I want to go to 100% power. It'll set them all to 100% power, and then you'll see so like the other one is the set point. This is the actual performance. They should start to ramp. And if they don't, we'll have to go fuss at our product manager. But oh, I don't think I hit save. Maybe it doesn't have a save. I'm not sure here. Either way, you do have the ability. Oh, it does have a save. There we go. Okay. So now we're at 100%. And you'll notice that that's going to get the chips pretty cold, I think, or pretty cool from where they were. So the idea here with fans is that you've got control. We've had some of our Canadian clients reach out to us or talk to us about different applications, specifically like in commissioning, when they need to bring their fleet online. If it's the middle of winter, it's cold enough that they actually have to just turn the fans off. They don't like, and to be clear, when you turn the fans off, it's not truly off. There's a like a nominal, I think 200 or 300 RPM that's just going to be there because of limitations on the PWM controller. But either way, that you can turn them off, which would allow you to generate enough heat to get the machines up to operational temperatures, and then you can start to regulate temperature as you need. So you have that control for your fleet. Like I said, you can dispatch with APIs, or eventually we look to have full integration support with people like Foreman or Awesome Miner. We have basic support from those guys right now when it comes to monitoring, but ultimately it'd be really nice if they have a full integration. So if you're a customer of those guys, by all means, go fuss at them and say, hey, I need LuxOS support. And then the other topic around fans is immersion. So that's one of the things that's currently in progress. We're building the immersion mode. There'll be a little toggle in the GUI basically, but what it means in the back end is once you select that, it'll reject any commands to the machine to adjust the fan parameters, because you're in immersion mode and you probably don't have fans. So it gives you a little bit of a safeguard against doing something that you don't have time for, or not necessarily don't have time for, but that you can't do. So fans, I think up next we'll talk about hash rate splitting. So we're kind of closing in on the end of all the features and functions that we're excited about here. But the idea is hash rate splitting. So this isn't entirely novel as of our public release, but I'm pretty sure it's new-ish within the past couple of months. I hadn't seen it on other firmware, but I know you can't do it with stock. So the idea here is you can split your hash rate, and you can split your hash rate at the machine. In most cases, when it comes to purchasing machines, they're really expensive. So if you want to maybe go in halvesies with a friend, you're a home miner, you can split your hash rate at the machine. And when it comes to existing solutions, you had to split your hash rate at the pool level. So if you want to split with your friend who maybe he has a good power bill and you've got a little extra money, you can go in halvesies and split your hash rate 50-50. The way I've chosen to demonstrate this here is actually with CK pool. So if anyone is familiar with CK pool, it's a solo pool where you get to keep 98% of the block reward. However, like dedicating all of your hash rate to that pool means that you run a really good chance of not hitting a block and you use up all that power. So if you want to go full degenerate, you can put 2% of your hash rate pointed toward the CK pool. And if you hit a block, then you're good to go. So it's a neat application where you can actually take some of your hash rate, dedicate it to that. If you've got a little risk tolerance, it's kind of like balancing a portfolio. You need some high risk and some low risk stuff. But in the world of finance, I think everything's a little bit risky right now. So yeah, hash rate splitting. One of the things that's interesting about it, the way we have it currently configured, is we have these quotas. They're called quotas and not percentages for a reason. I've got them listed as whole numbers that add up to 100 because they'll behave like percentages. But ultimately what happens in the event that you lose a pool, so let's say you've got a 100 terahash machine here, and you've got 4 pool groups, and your split is 20, 20, 20, and 40, all adding up to 100. Well, let's say pool 2 dies for some reason. They have to shut down or whatever. If that pool goes down, it recalculates the percentages based upon the quotas as they add up in their that state. So then you'd have 25, 25, and 50 because it's 20, 20, 40 to give you 80. So it's just a neat feature that we're excited about. We talked about the term micro hosting with I'm drawing a blank now.
Hobbyist miner.
That's it. Thank you. So yeah, the idea of micro hosting to where, again, like if you've got a friend, you can split some hash rate with them, or you want to collect if you are a professional hosting operation and you want to collect some of your revenue in the form of hash rate, you have that option available to you as well. So ultimately, that's the idea behind hash rate splitting. I think we are working on releasing like an actual percentage based. I'm not 100% clear on how we're going to administer that. I would guess it's something like if a pool fails, it just reverts the rest of it. But either way, that's the idea. Let me talk through logs a little bit here as well, because they're kind of relevant to some of the guys that are really tinkering in the details. You'll notice our logs are really, really heavy. Like that's a lot of megabytes for a log. With this being from scratch, our developers put as much data packed in here as they could. So if anything does go wrong, it's readily available at their fingertips to go look at how to diagnose it. One of the neat features that we have here is a keyword search. So as this solution matures a little bit, you'll be able to do, well, and I don't have that keyword and everything seems to be the same, but if you have an error that you need to search for, you'll have the ability to do a keyword search on your maintenance bench if you need it, or whatever the case may be. So you'll be able to get to the problem a little more quickly. And then I should also talk about settings. So one of the things that's pretty cool here that we have is updates. So a lot of the firmware out there, you either have to go download, flash an SD card and replace it, or you have to download it, go into the GUI and copy it and point it to. You don't have to do that here. So here you can actually come in, click, check and install, and it's going to go grab the latest version available to you and download it, restart your miner for you. We also have auto updates as an available feature if you want to kind of stay up with things. However, at present, we ship the firmware with them set to off. We want to make sure that if you set your machine up and walk away, it's not going to change for any reason because we did something. So I have mine set to on because I'm in the beta test pool. This is a S19J Pro running in my garage, so I need to get the updates whenever they come. But you can see your latest version of your firmware, or the current version of your firmware here, and also down here. So if you need support or anything like that, that's where you can get that. So I guess we can talk about in the context of OEE, one of the things I touched on and it kind of touches to Frederico's question here. The efficiency that we stand to provide with LuxOS, a lot of it centers on responding to conditions. What we've noticed very distinctly is that the temperature of your chips and of your board, I mean, by default, your board, that plays the most important role on the efficiency of the machine, like all things being equal. If like you take two machines side by side, they're perfectly healthy, same model, same chip, same everything, same batch, same power supply, all that's the same. You put them side by side, and let's say you put a blow dryer aimed at one of their intakes, and you heat it up by, like, let's just say 5 degrees Celsius for the intake. The difference in performance is drastic. So the best way to maintain efficiency on your machines is to respond to your ambient conditions. Unless you're doing immersion where you can actually control, where you still are somewhat at the mercy of how much heat you can get out of the fluid, the efficiency of your machine is controlled by your ambient temperature. Now, if you have chips going down, that'll also affect your efficiency. So maintaining, again, I'll go back to the concept of OEE. Your overall equipment effectiveness is as critical as just the hash rate versus specified hash rate. Making sure that you are taking action to repair your machine when you have unhealthy chips improves your efficiency. Making sure that your machine is up because you're not having to restart for an auto tune or restart to change your profile is improving your uptime. All of this combines to give you a more powerful, powerful is not a good word, basically a more efficient machine because of the holistic approach rather than just trying to optimize one thing. So in general, the way that we aim to deliver efficiency is by giving you the tools to respond to the environment that you're in. Because a miner who's operating in, let's say, Midland, Texas, is going to have very different parameters from an operator in Vancouver, right? Like the temperature difference alone will directly impact how efficient the miner is. So we give you the chance to say, hey, it's cold outside, I'm going to underclock and turn my fans down a little bit. Or, hey, it's cold out, or it's hot as hell outside, and I've got machines that are going to go down if I don't adjust these temperature set points. So in your question, Federico, the ability to change these parameters, which Bitmain explicitly does not allow, that's exactly how you get more efficiency out of your machine, because you can improve your uptime and you can actually improve the performance given the conditions of your climate. Sorry. So happy that could help. So that's pretty much it for the demo. We've got about 18 minutes left on the entire webinar here. I do want to open it up to see if anyone has any specific questions on anything I touched on, or if there's any concerns that I didn't address. So if you would, please raise your hands if you have a question. No one? It's okay if no one has a question. I guess that means I touched on all the bases here. One of the marks. Okay, so without any questions, we can look at wrapping things up. Alessandro, do you have anything you wanted to touch on?
No, I think we're good. We did reply to, I think, 5 or 6 questions during your presentation. So if people don't have any further questions, maybe we already addressed them. This looks awesome. Can't wait to try it.
Love that.
Thank you, Federico.
Yeah. One thing I do want to mention is not a shameless plug, but a plug. So as we kind of address the compatibility issue, we do have a giveaway going on right now. So if you have an S19J Pro or an S19 XP, and it doesn't have a Xilinx control board, we have a partnership with Altair Technologies, who's on Twitter. So if you get over to our Twitter account, you can enter for the giveaway, and we're giving away 4 control boards to anyone who enters. I don't remember all the ways to enter, but there's some criteria. We ask that you tweet someone, reply, or post a picture of your rig, and we'll throw that in the hat and see who wins a control board. We're happy to get people onboarded and testing.
Yeah, the tweet is it's pinned on our profile. You'll just have to like and retweet it, follow Luxor Tech Team and Knowledge Tech, and then just tweet a picture of your rig, and you'll enter the contest to win a Xilinx control board. Awesome. So I think that will do. Thanks everybody for joining today's webinar. We're going to be doing more of these, you know, and for different use cases of webinar, not only in general. So stay tuned. Yeah, thanks again for joining. We look forward to having you in the next one.
Yeah, and if you have any questions, we do have a Telegram you can jump into. We have a Discord as well. Please get in touch if you have any curiosities or interests in testing out the firmware.